Well, Kamala Harris is ramping up interviews after we've criticized her for not speaking directly to the press or to the American people. But her interview with 60 Minutes this week did her no favors at all. Now, we can't play you clips of that because 60 Minutes is very bullish about taking down anyone who shows clips of their videos. But we're still going to talk about it on this platform. I will show you the highlights. The transcripts are available. I linked you to them in the newsletter today so you can watch for yourself. But first, about their interview with Donald Trump. Now, the show made a big deal that Donald Trump was one of the first presidential candidates not to appear on their show in the months before an election. In 50 years, they say that this is an important American tradition for the candidates to be on 60 Minutes, and they are very sad that he wouldn't do the show. This seems maybe more of a sad commentary on the waning influence of legacy media than a real flex on Donald Trump, but they still took the piss out of him, even though they failed us. They failed Trump, certainly, but they failed us as viewers with their 2020 interview of Donald Trump. Now, they say, hey, remember last time he was on here, he walked out. They do not say that they falsely reported his claims. Remember this 2020 campaign interview with 60 Minutes. He sat with Leslie Stahl. Here is that transcript, and you can see it yourself. And he says one of the biggest scandals was when they spied on my campaign. He means the Democrats. And she says, no, there's no evidence. No, she just keeps pushing back. Sir, she says, this is 60 Minutes. We can't put things on that we can't verify. Well, it turns out that his campaign was spied on by the Clinton campaign. We learned that in the FBI's own Dunham special counsel investigation. In fact, they indicted a man for doing just that. Now, 60 Minutes should apologize to the viewer, or at least tell them, hey, last time he was on, we pushed back on things he said that we thought weren't true because we didn't bother to investigate it because he said it. Those things turned out to be true. We're going to do better this time. We owe you an apology. I mean, less again to Donald Trump than to us, the viewer, because they're saying those things weren't true. They were lying to us. She also pushed back on the Hunter Biden laptop and the fact that the Bidens had accepted money from abroad. Here is how they said, these things are... He pushed us on the lack of coverage of the unproven and unverified charges about the Bidens receiving money from abroad. But those things also turned out to be true. We have seen evidence of that from the House Judiciary Committee and the evidence they presented that Congress doesn't want to really move on, and neither does the Justice Department, but they exist. We've seen the proof. So would you do an interview with them after this? They owe us an apology. They owe Trump an apology. They never investigated those things. They just wanted to say, we haven't seen that and we won't, and you're wrong, and we're just going to keep saying no. Well, maybe since they were so off base on Trump, Kamala Harris thought that they would be friendly to her, and she was wrong. In fact, 60 Minutes host Bill Whitaker came at her for all the things that we have wanted answers for. It was really something to see. He pushed her on the border wall. Here's what she said. He said there was a historic flood of undocumented immigrants coming across the border for the first 3 years of your administration. Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did? And she says, well, blah, 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 blah. You can read it for yourself. And he comes back at her. He's not having it. He says, well, no, what I was asking, was it a mistake to allow this in the first place? Well, blah, blah, blah. And he says, but the numbers did quadruple. Well, the numbers today, he says, under your watch, should you have done that? He is a dog with a bone. And she says, well, immigrants, fentanyl, blah, blah, blah. And he says, again, should you have done that? She continues to push this answer that Congress needs to solve this and not her, which doesn't make sense because her administration lifted the requirements for immigration and open the floodgates. They didn't use Congress for that. They just did it. So how can she say we just took the power to do it, but we need Congress to undo it? It makes no sense.
On day one of his presidency, they undid through executive orders, they undid all of those Trump border policies,
which was a campaign promise that she herself advocated for. In fact, she advocated for more during her own candidacy before she was named as the vice presidential candidate. So again,
I'd say that's what she's running on now. She's saying she's going to fix the border. Like, she will fix the border. That's what she is saying. Yeah. She is going to fix it. But obviously she doesn't think she actually can. So why is she saying
right. when he's pointing out you broke it even more than it was already broken.
Yeah, and you skipped over a part because I know you're trying to keep it brief, but he says since Trump left, border crossings have quadrupled under your watch. This was 60 Minutes saying this to her.
Right.
So again, I come back to the segment we did a few minutes ago. Something fishy is going on here. CBS is a extension of the White House. It is a extension of the CIA and the deep state, right?
Yes.
And it is a liberal news station and an extension of the White House. Why are they... I mean, they're destroying her with
Yes.
this. This is arguably one of the worst interviews a presidential candidate has ever given.
Right. Yeah.
They didn't give her any softballs.
No, I mean, that was exactly my as I was watching it, I was like, what is this? This is real. Why is this happening?
Right.
I'm prepared for the propaganda, and the propaganda's not coming. I don't know what to do with this.
And not to pull the race card, but I think it's good that they used a black interviewer to do the interview, because they would have been saying, oh, he was just attacking her because he's white and she's black.
Yeah, he's a racist. Oh, no, he's black? Oh, okay, no, it's fine. He's just a tough interviewer then.
Right.
He's not racist. He's just a tough interviewer. Love it.
Yeah. And again, I want to point out that this bill that they're pushing about Congress, the bill is to fund the border wall. It is not to solve the problem that has broken further under the Biden-Harris administration. It would not handle any deportation. It would not address illegals who are currently in the country. It would only strengthen the wall as it is now, which again, they have refused to do. So now how he pushed her on her economic plan, she really only spoke about spending, not about paying for it. Here are some excerpts. He says, it's estimated that your plan would cost $3 trillion to the deficit. How are you going to pay for that? And she says, well, her answer, well, economists like my plan. She doesn't say,
economists.
like, people like it. Okay, that's cool.
So she says, okay, so the other economists like my plan.
Right.
Not the ones that CBS talked about.
Yeah, and he says,
ones.
and she says, no, she gives him this I'm speaking bit, but it's, to invest in the economy, small business. And he says, yes, I keep asking you, how are you going to pay for it? Take a look. And she says, well, again, taxing the rich is one of her, it's not fair. And he's like, we're dealing with the real world here. How are you going to pay for it? Because he quite correctly points out that Congress is not going to allow you to raise taxes. And there's been no appetite for them. And he says, how are you going to put this through Congress? And she's like, they want it. And he's like, no, they don't. Look at what he says next is Congress has shown no inclination to move in your direction. No, actually, that's not true, she says. She doesn't say who supports it. She doesn't say how she would do it. She just says, actually, I think there is like a temperament for increasing taxes. I think I can do it, even though President Biden was not able to. I'm pretty sure I can. Now, he asked her about how she jumped over the primary process, and this was not in the main interview. This is in 60 Minutes overtime. I think it should have been in the main interview because it was great. Specifically, he asked her, was democracy best served without a Democratic primary? He said, you didn't have to fight off any contenders in the process. That's not how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to be primaried. What she answered was that President Biden's decision would be remembered by history as rare because he put country before self. She says she earned the support of delegates, not the people, clearly. And you might recall that she performed terribly in the 2020 primaries. So
she was the first one out.
Yeah.
She was at the bottom. I mean, she was behind Andrew Yang. She was behind Bernie Sanders. She was behind all of them.
Right.
She was out first. And so she's the candidate?
Yeah.
I love that he asked her that question.
Now, later he says a quarter of registered voters say they just don't know you. They don't know what makes you tick. And why do you think that is? What's the disconnect? And now this part where she says, look, this is an election. I take it seriously that I have to earn everyone's vote. She says, I'm just like, did you just say that? No one should be able to take for granted that they can just declare themselves a candidate and automatically receive support. And I was like, you just did that 2 months ago. You just declared you.
No one should be able to take for granted.
Wait, what? That's
You're
what's
living
happening.
in the past, Natalie. You got to get over that.
Okay.
We're moving forward from here on.
Even Grover's pissed about that. You hear him.
Yeah. Okay. And he asked her why she's flipped on so many issues. And she said it's because she travels a lot and she's learned a lot in gaining perspective. And I think that's a valid answer. I don't buy it because she seems to have so much humility. This is my opinion. You don't have to share it with me. But yeah, it could be true. You gain humility and perspective from meeting people. Maybe that's the case. But, you know, I would like her to answer for the fact that, okay, do you think taxpayers should pay for transgender surgeries, for sex change surgeries? Do you think that we should defund the police? Do you not believe that anymore? Tell me why you think that's not the case. Is it because these liberal cities are dystopic hell? Then, you know, that's more what I want to hear.
One of his pointed questions was specifically on flip-flopping on so many issues.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, he says this, you've flip-flopped on every one of your major issues. You were totally against fracking. And she sat there. She didn't like jump in. He said, you were totally against fracking and now you're for it. You were totally against a border wall and now you're for it. Mm-hmm. You were, what else did he say? You were totally against, there was like a couple of things.
It escapes me at this moment.
There was a whole bunch of them. And she just said, and then she just sat there like wilted. Like, she's like, oh, this isn't going to be the interview I thought it was going to be. Yeah, 60 Minutes is dead. So many people in the chat are saying it's dead. It has been for years. Exactly right. Maybe this is like 60 Minutes trying to revive itself once again by doing actual journalism.
Look, we both went to journalism school. It was presented to us as the gold standard of journalism in journalism school in the early 2000s when we were in school, right? And so Clayton and I have always had this reverence for it, and it's a gut check
back
to us.
Yeah.
When we were baby journalists just out of college, and now having seen them not apologize for lies, I'm not happy about that, but I don't know how to feel about the fact that there's one left. There's one person left who's willing to push for the truth. This reporter, Bill Whitaker, is welcome on Redacted if they punish him for it. I want to say that. Now, there is also, I cannot show you this, but there's evidence that her answer on Israel was edited in order to make her seem more favorable towards Israel instead of what the whole Biden administration and the State Department seems to be displaying to us is the fact that they cannot influence Israel, but they will not withhold aid. That's the story.
And so the video that CBS then put out on their website is an edited version of her response. You can actually watch the unedited version of her response. I don't understand why they would edit it. I don't get that at all.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. She talked about guns too.
Oh, sure. You want to talk about
So this was Bill Whitaker asked her about guns, because she's flip-flopped on this position, right? So she talked all about, he's like, do you have guns? You use guns? She's like, yeah, I have a Glock. And okay, which Glock? Because if any Glock owner would probably, give you the numeral afterwards. Is it a Glock 19? I mean, Glock makes 50 different guns. Like, which one is it? Like, how often do you fire it? Do you use it on a regular? So if you ask me, like, what gun do you have? I'd say, I'd name the gun that I use in the, X365 or whatever it is, right? But she's flip-flopped on the magazine issue. And I was going to show you a magazine here, but according to YouTube's terms of service, we'd get in deep shit. So we can't show you that. This is crazy. I mean, this is how YouTube is. So I'll just show you my range bag here. But inside.
What are you doing?
I was going to say, because I was going to bring out a magazine and show it, but I can't show it.
You want to show what a gun owner actually talks like when they...
No. I wanted to point out a magazine because she specifically wants to eliminate high-capacity magazines. Well, as a Glock owner, you would know that that's it holds 10 rounds. So anything over 7 is basically what she's looking to ban. Mm-hmm. So she'd be banning her own gun. Right. So Bill Whitaker didn't push her on that. I would have loved for her to have talked about that.
Maybe he doesn't know.
Well, maybe he doesn't, but he seemed to know a lot of other things. But she's like, oh yeah, I shoot it. What did she say? I shoot it at the range,
he said, have you ever fired it? And she said, yes, of course I have, at the range.
At the range,
right.
But again, so if she's got a Glock, which one was it? And does it then violate her own standards for high capacity? If she says anything over 7 rounds is what she wants to go after, and if she has a Glock 19, she's got what, 10 rounds? So she'd be basically eliminating her own gun. She's like, I would never want to take your guns. I'm a law-abiding gun owner. I'm a registered gun owner. Mm-hmm. Right. So your own policy then would eliminate the gun that you have in your own house, is what I'm saying. So the hypocrisy is thick with her on so many different issues. The gun issue is one of them. Okay. So many people online, of course, who are gun owners who are way more fluent in gun language and usage than certainly I am. We're like, no one would respond this way. And by the way, calling out her hypocrisy on how often she's using it. Like, when are you going to a gun range? Tell us when the last time you've been to a gun range, because that would be well documented as vice president of the United States.
Sure.
So in the last 3.5 years while you've been vice president, we have a full calendar of all of your whereabouts and all of your appearances. Do any of those include going to the gun range in California?
Because that would be a Secret Service nightmare, is that your main charge is going to a place where they're only firing guns. Like, could you even secure that as Secret Service?
Right. I mean, I'd like for a White House reporter that has access to those White House visitors logs, the transportation logs for the vice president. They're handed those every day, part of the daily briefing, right? Where they're going to be, where they're traveling with, all of those things. We should know as Americans, when's the last time you've been there? Like, you're talking about that you're not going to take people's guns away. And you're saying you go to the gun range. Well, let us know then, because
it's
all should be
valid for her to say, I did this 10 years ago. I'm not practiced, but I felt this. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, but she didn't say that.
Well,
but she's also not trying to make us think that she's John Wick either.
She is, though. She's talked repeatedly about how she's a registered gun owner and they like hunting, and she and her husband like to have guns, and they're not going to take your guns away. So her policies.
As much virtue signaling as she does, if she was actually going to a gun range, they'd get that on film so that she could back it up. They would be there.
But liberals don't want to see that. It would upset them.
Oh yeah, it would totally destroy her liberal base, right? She can talk out of both sides of her mouth, right? That's a great point, Natalie. Like, yeah. They don't want to see that. They don't want to have footage of that. Like John Kerry with a gun, going out hunting.
It's okay for you to say you have a gun. We just don't want to see you with it.
Right, exactly.
Sure. Okay, so she, while President Biden is doing serious press conferences about the hurricane this week, she is doing other, I want to say friendly media. She was on The View. We showed you that earlier. She was on Howard Stern this morning. She will be on The Late Night with Stephen Colbert. She was on a sex podcast called Call Her Daddy this week. Is this working for her? Well, what she's clearly trying to do is make us like her, because her policies are so vapid that what she really needs is this sort of star quality that I'm not sure that she's got, because what she's saying is more of the same that we have from this administration, is ratcheting up debt, continuing war, not solving the border crisis. Oddly enough, though, since liberals are following her around to these press appearances, people seem to be suddenly offended that she would go on Howard Stern because he has been offensive in the past. Like, who did not know that Howard Stern was offensive before today? Like, how could she go on there because he's used the N-word before? He's done much worse than that. He has people touch themselves. He has people get naked in the very chair she was sitting in. He has had fart contests. Like, why is this all of a sudden?
Suddenly people are shocked.
That she would do Howard Stern when, again, Joe Biden did Howard Stern about 2 months ago. Go ahead, David.
Well, and in 2008, Howard Stern went on a tirade saying he was never, ever in his life going to vote Democrat again. Even if God was to become a Democrat, he would not vote Democrat. Like, he was on a tirade about it.
Why did he say that?
It was after Hurricane Sandy,
because
right?
He said the FCC were communists for what they were trying to do to radio stations and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but now he's changed his tune, right?
Yeah.
Now he loves the war in Ukraine. He loves it. He loves all war. He loves the COVID
people
vaccine.
Dying, apparently. He loves
so
genocide.
he's some kind of, either he's been captured or he's just too far down the rabbit hole of the media echo chamber. I have no idea, but it's hilarious that people are thinking like, wait, he's offensive, but the sex podcast wasn't. Like, literally, they talked about things that I won't say. This same host before Kamala Harris sat in that chair. So, okay. You let me know if you think that this is actually personalizing her. Is that a word? Personalizing? Personal. I made it up.
Depends on how you're using it.
And whether or not this is working for her. I just, because I'm so used to seeing the media telling lies, I'm very confused. I'm going to say I'm confused that they would tell a lie about Trump and then also tell the truth about Kamala Harris. It doesn't compute in my, like, they're all captured. So I have to think outside the box. And so come with me and just observe. That's what we're observing together.